Hey Gabe Nights, Zhylaw here. Today I want to talk about something a little more serious and something that I thought about putting into words or into some sort of video in one fashion or another. And it's something I've talked about briefly in the past on my Twitch stream. And this video special is about, well, mental illness and Twitch. A lot of people get into live streaming on Twitch because they love games, because it's a great way to interact with people. Maybe they end up on Twitch as a evolution or extension of some other platform that they work on, game review website or YouTube. And some people just they see dollar bills and want money, right? But and these are all very common ideas. Many people understand this. But there's another reason why some people get into live streaming and try to make money on Twitch that isn't really recognized, but it's definitely common, and that is becoming a broadcaster on Twitch is very appealing to people that have certain problems that would give them issues in a normal work environment, an office environment, they're unable or they would have problems, uh, let's say, functioning as well in the quote unquote real world, going outside. Um, and it's something that really needs to be recognized for a variety of reasons. Um, Mental illness or physiological issues or depression, or I mean, I don't know what the quite the proper the word for the overarching concept is, but anything from something you could be born with or something you could develop. It's something that could strike anyone in the population. Um, there's I'm sure it's like there's percentage statistics and whatnot, but there's a much higher statistic, or I would say much more, uh, the percentage, yes, the percentage of broadcasters that have issues, shall we say, are probably much higher than the populace at large, which would be an interesting statistics to actually acquire and analyze, though it would be extremely difficult because it would require honesty from people and whatnot. But I mean, yes, the viewership on Twitch also, a lot of the people watching are shut-ins and whatnot. But right now, I'm focusing on the broadcasters. I absolutely believe that a larger percentage, much larger percentage than the norm, Twitch broadcasters have disorders, and as such, a job where they're their own boss. They don't really have to interact with people in person or physically, where they set their own hours and there's no dress code and they can just be themselves and jump up and down or whatever, would be very appealing and feel very safe for them. Now, I know of personally many broadcasters that have problems. Um, I've been on Twitch since it first started. I wasn't here for Justin, but I was around right when Twitch started, while Justin, was still around before it went belly up, and I spent a ridiculous amount of time on Twitch. I'm not going to name any individuals because um, that would probably take this in a totally different direction, and it would be quite rude. But I've seen live streamers that are war veterans that are suffering from PTSD that went on a downward spiral until they were unrecognizable from the person they used to be. And it's very noticeable when you have videos chronicling, someone's daily live streaming, to the point where they were so erratic and threatening self-harm that their channel was banned. I've seen live streamers suffering from severe depression, uh, from suicidal ideations. Um, I know of one very well-known streamer who came out and admitted, and there's no shame, of course, but he admitted that he was bipolar, and that was, affecting his life as well as his ability to stream. There are many broadcasters that suffer from ADHD or ADD, I guess myself included, and there are also many broadcasters that have either a general anxiety disorder or social anxiety disorder. I know of a few in particular that have SAD. I don't know of too many with GAD. I know of a few broadcasters, and these are all very well known, or they were well known, that suffer from depression. And there are a few broadcasters that have I guess you could say they're on the spectrum, I believe is the way you put it. Different levels of autism, and I know autism has become like a joke or a meme on Twitch, which honestly is very unfortunate. I am not a fan of using like the name of a particular ailment or disorder as a way of insulting people who are misbehaving. It's one thing to call someone an idiot. I mean, I know some people even get their hackles up when you say retard, though that's kind of a word that has just entered the general vernacular, and you're not going to take back retard, but the trend of insulting people by calling them autistic or spurgs, I'm really not a fan of that, for a variety of reasons, including the fact that obviously trying to talk about people with autism now just causes people to just giggle, because they can't take it seriously. So yeah, there is a large percentage of broadcasters on Twitch who suffer from a variety of mental disorders and genetic ailments. I don't know what the psychological word is per se. I'm not a psychiatrist. And why does this matter? Like, why am I even making a video talking about it? A lot of people, they retreat to live streaming, so that they don't have to deal with their whatever their particular issue is, and instead of like fixing it, they kind of hide from it and they hide from the world. But that's not really a long-term solution, and heaven forbid, streaming doesn't work out. And certain problems, many problems, have a tendency to get worse over time, especially if left untreated. And I think it's important to recognize that it's okay, to have a disorder of some kind or another. That is no different than having, a more physical disease, or something genetic, or Tay-Sachs syndrome, or I don't know, or having a broken leg. And I think that there should be more effort to be more, and this is a problem in American society in general, not just Twitch, but we need to be more understanding and empathetic when it comes to mental disorders, so people would be more inclined to get help for it themselves. Also, and this is really important, I really feel like Twitch has some sort of responsibility. Maybe not legally, which unfortunately is all they care about a lot of the time, but definitely ethically. I feel that knowing, and you can't pretend, we can't pretend we don't know, knowing that it's such a serious issue in regards to streamers in general, that some effort should be put in to helping broadcasters. Similarly to how PTSD, for example, is such a huge problem in the military, that the VA is putting specific resources and research into dealing with PTSD because it's expected that future PTSD sufferers will come in, not just to treat the ones that are existing now. So I think that at least for partners, I mean, obviously it's a random streamer. That's another story. But I feel like there should be um, resources available through Twitch to help partners who are struggling mentally. Some sort of I don't know, a partner assistance program to get you in touch with like therapists, maybe like a hotline that with people familiar with the life of a live streamer, so it could be more specialized. I feel like there should be a report button for a live stream where you could specifically say, I think this streamer is mentally unwell. And then if like enough people check that off, maybe Twitch could have somebody check in on the broadcaster, like a little wellness check, like to make sure that they're okay. And then, maybe even, like, I think it would be cool if at Twitch headquarters they had like a few psychiatrists. I know it's kind of expensive to have them on the staff, but maybe like two psychologists. Psychiatrists can prescribe medication, psychologists don't. So like probably psychologists would be better, and then they could just direct, and so like two psychologists that would just keep an eye on streams or streamers that they believe might need some help. Maybe at TwitchCon, maybe there should be like a conference specifically about mental health with all kinds of pamphlets explaining the different kinds of disorders, so streamers would have help recognizing it in themselves. And maybe like they could have like a guest speakers, like some PhD psychologists talking about how it's okay to admit you have a problem, because it is mostly there's always been this idea that you should feel ashamed because to have a problem it means like you're weak. Like if you are in a car accident and you're injured, or if you are stricken with cancer, there's no reason to be ashamed. People aren't ashamed. People try to at least turn it into like a badge of courage, if nothing else. But when it comes to having any sort of problem that affects your behavior or your temperament or your mind, there's this idea that it's your fault, that you're just weak, or that you're a coward, that you need to be stronger and man up and be more macho. And so people don't want to admit themselves that they have a problem, and they refuse to admit it to others. Now, obviously, a live streamer has no responsibility to talk about any sort of problems of their personal lives on stream. And that's not what I mean when I say admit it. I mean that they need to admit it to their loved ones and to seek help and admit it to themselves. And also substance abuse is a problem with broadcasters, in particular amphetamine type drugs that let you stay awake, and like caffeine. And this ties into mental illness because a lot of undiagnosed mental illnesses, people who have these illnesses, they will unconsciously self-treat with substance abuse. A very large percentage of undiagnosed people who are bipolar will treat themselves with all manner of drugs, trying to, fix, because they feel like wrong. And so they just try to treat themselves with like anything like that, because when people are manic, they're not really afraid of consequences, so they'll just take all sorts of drugs. People that have ADHD or ADD will self-treat with copious amounts of caffeine or amphetamines, and people with depression will always sometimes try to cope with mood-enhancing drugs. And I think it would be cool if maybe TwitchCon could have a conference about substance abuse as well. And that also ties into, I know that substance abuse for like performance-enhancing substances is an issue in esports. So that could uh, like there could be some benefit there to talking about the dangers of and methamphetamines, speed, Adderall. So it'd be like a double whammy. But in general, I just want people to understand that it's okay to have a problem and to get help for it. And I want Twitch to recognize the enormous correlation between their partner broadcasters and people who have any number of illnesses, ailments, syndromes that could affect their mind. And as such, find some way to help. I mean, there's so many different possible things. Obviously everything costs money, so I'm sure they could figure out something that's not too expensive and it doesn't open them up to too much liability. Because I know at the end of the day, it's all about liability. But I really, really feel like Twitch has a moral responsibility to do anything more than they're doing now, which is literally nothing. Um, and there have been many cases of deranged live streamers going bananas, bonkers on stream, and Twitch shuts down their channel and bans them out of fear that they're gonna kill themselves or something or do anything else extremely dangerous or drastic or violent. And I always wonder when they ban a channel for self harm or destructive behavior, like what else do they do? Like I really hope that that's not the end of it as far as they're concerned. Like do they try to call them? Do they call the local social services or police department and ask them to check up on the live streamer? Do they have an emergency contact to call a loved one to say this person might need of assistance? I really hope so, but I have no idea. Obviously, it's all private. So going with the assumption that all they do is literally push the ban button and then go, "Woo! He didn't kill himself on stream. That's all we care about." And I really hope that's not the case. And if it's not the case, then I'm sorry for assuming it is. But I really, really hope, and if they're not, I really want them to start following up on it. And obviously, Twitch isn't people's babysitter. It is a company, and partners are like subcontracted employees. It's iffy, new ground and whatnot. But I don't think it would hurt to recognize the potential dangers and look out at further investments, the partners, and maybe also just because it's the right thing to do. I'm sure they could talk to their legal team to see what they're allowed to, and what can they do to help partners who are in dire need of psychiatric help without risking a lawsuit or something. And that's pretty much my primary objective, is to get Twitch to take more interest in mental health of their streamers and to do something. I also, if streamers happen to watch, I just want to say that there's no shame in admitting you have a problem, and these problems, they don't go away. So seek treatment. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with having a problem. It's not your fault. And as a viewer, try to be more empathetic and sympathetic, and don't be so quick to hurl curses and at streamers. If a streamer seems to be acting strange, if he's rude, if he's erratic, and he said he's suffering from depression or he's bipolar, maybe instead of spamming like stupid emotes and making fun of them and saying that they're a liar in chat, maybe you could be a little more supportive. That would be really nice. And it's horrible when a streamer talks about, and it doesn't happen very often for this very reason, but when I've seen live streamers talk about psychiatric problems that they have or what they're suffering through, people either don't believe them or they just laugh at them, and they just call them weak. And that really sucks. I mean, I know I can't really ask much from Twitch community because we all know how wonderful it is in general, but it doesn't hurt to ask it or to mention it. And if you're particularly close to a live streamer where you actually have their ear, if you're like a moderator in their channel and you think that they're kind of going off the rails and that they need help, don't be afraid to politely suggest to them that maybe they should seek help, because the people that need help the most are always the ones that seek it the least. And a random viewer sending in a tip saying, you're crazy, see a doctor, will be ignored. And also people use that kind of message to troll all the time. So it's like the boy who cried wolf. And yeah, and I guess that's what I want. Oh, and I should mention, to be helpful, that I myself, as I think I mentioned briefly, but I do have issues. I have ADHD, and I have GAD, and minor OCD. They got some alphabet soup for you. Feel free to look it up if you want. And it is what it is. I deal with it best as I can, and I don't mind talking about it, but I wouldn't brag about it, but I'm not ashamed of it either. And I received help, and it helped me a lot, and I'm glad I did. And you too can do the same. So yeah, well, I guess that's it. Thank you for watching, and just be awesome to each other, everybody. And I'll see you on Twitch.